Episode 2 of the Beatles Get Back documentary series is so very different from episode 1. They wind up going to the Apple basement. Basically, they are at home now, someplace a lot more intimate, more comfortable, more conducive to creative endeavors. So unlike the Twickenham studios, that soundstage there, every time I think about it, it upsets me because it's just not conducive. It's not warm and cozy and intimate. They had to create something out of nothing there. And that's not a place where that kind of thing happens, especially when you have all these cameras on you, all those, microphones, and things aren't working, and people aren't ready for them. Nobody knows what's going on. People were just pressuring them and saying, do this, do that, and trying to force the Beatles to go someplace where they didn't want to go. Obviously, they wanted to, do a film or rehearse, or maybe they were going to build something around them there at Twickenham. But it all looked good until they went to Apple, the basement at Apple. Then it was like, okay, we're in charge again. This feels great again. And the other thing that kind of works out for them there is the fact that John kind of shows up. Okay. And John is really like the weather, in my opinion. And it's so clear in this episode how John is very unpredictable, just like the weather. If it's sunny outside, great. It's going to be good. You can relax and you can just go about your day if it's going to be sunny. Now, if it's cloudy, it's like, look out. You don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to be thunder? Is it lightning? Is the wind going to blow? You just got to take cover. So you always have to take John, whatever mood you got to take him into account, and you pay attention to him because he's just that type of an energy. And again, he can make or break the whole thing. And it was getting close to breaking in that very first episode there at Twickenham. Obviously he was not in a good place there. He was just not feeling it there. It was not conducive to creativity. I don't know. Obviously some good things happened there, like I said, but here they are. They're like at home base there in Apple. And now, and John is all sunny again. And Paul can relax a little bit. They got some good banter going. All throughout the episode, John is even being a little bit snarky and teasing him, some good stuff going on between those two, little power plays going on. And that's great. To me, it's almost like they are touching base. All of them are getting back to the dynamic that works for them. And it's cozier too. Ringo is up on that drum riser, really far away from them over at Twickenham Studios. Now Ringo is a lot more intimate. It's more intimate, more cozy. Ringo's right there, closer, and they can talk to him a lot easier, communicate a lot easier. And plus, they have all these toys there. Obviously they had a bunch of toys over there at Twickenham, but not as many as they got over there at Apple. Because you have that Rhodes piano that shows up. You have even that stupid Alexis guitar. Okay, that Magic Alex guitar situation, that's ridiculous. Then you have the Hawaiian guitar. You have all these different instruments there, okay, that they can play with and fiddle with, and that kind of inspires them. And let's try this and let's try that. You don't have to know how all these things work to make something out of it. Okay. And that's the cool thing about creativity, and especially people like the Beatles, who really there's no boundaries with them. Okay. They just don't, no is not the answer. Like, I can't, or I don't know what to do. That's not a thing with them. They just go ahead and see the impossible and they do it. They make the impossible possible, which is what they're doing here. And you can see that dynamic here. Things kind of come together. The magic begins to happen. Yeah, they laid out that framework. There's a lot of good stuff, like I said, creatively speaking over at Twickenham, even though all the odds were against them. But now they've taken their power back. Michael Lindsay Hogg is way back here. Dennis O'Dell is basically nowhere to be seen for the most part. And now even George Martin is kind of coming around a little bit more, making his presence known. Still, he really doesn't have any power other than to kind of maybe smooth things over as needed, or give encouragement, or just to be, like a lucky rabbit's foot for them. So, okay, this is someone familiar. Okay, this is someone that we know who's kind of hanging around, and maybe he can solve a couple problems here or there. Because boy, oh boy, they had a lot of problems they needed to solve there. Derek Taylor kind of shows up. Of course, Mal and Kevin are there doing their thing. So it all feels a lot more like home. The Beatles are in charge. They got a lot of toys to play with. They have all the chewing gum, coffee, and cigarettes and chocolate cupcakes they need. I mean, my God, and it's messy. Nothing is wrong with a great, big, messy, creative space. It's way more conducive. It's almost like a playpen. I'm sorry to say that, but it works for them. And I got to tell you, I think that, just how in the Twickenham studios, how like the motto for that whole situation was like, maybe we will, maybe we won't. That was the tagline there that Paul McCartney came up with. In this episode, George Harrison kind of comes up with a tagline, for episode 2.
It sounds lovely, though.
And it's that whole episode of Two of Us, of how Two of Us kind of emerges. To me, that encapsulates like all of episode 2 right there. Like Two of Us. Now, I don't know if Two of Us, they felt in the beginning, maybe we thought it was going to be acoustics. Maybe they were going to try that, but they decided to, or at least Paul decided, okay, let's make it a rocker. Okay, maybe that's what they were thinking in the beginning. I don't know. But anyway, it wasn't working, obviously. Didn't feel good. And they said, okay, now they're finally open. They're in this creative space where anything could happen. They're more relaxed. And John is there to kind of come up with something. And he's got the authority to say, why don't we try this? And the way he does it, he kind of schmoozes Paul a little bit, like, why don't we do this? Or why don't we do that? And Paul just kind of goes, okay, let's just try the acoustics now. Okay. And it all just kind of works out here. They're all working to everything just kind of falls into place and the energy just kind of shifts and Two of Us emerges as this most beautiful song in the entire world. It really is, and you can see it on their faces. Like when John kind of goes like that. And Paul gets that face when he's all into something and he's working and he's focused. He gets like, so I can't do it, but that's Paul. And I love to see that. And everything is working perfectly. They're all locked in, and that's that Beatle magic thing that happens. And again, this whole episode is about solving problems. Okay, like with the songs, Get Back kind of comes together. Billy Preston shows up. I've Got a Feeling. That's happening now. And also you have George's For You Blue. That all comes together and they're all enjoying that. And George Martin is there kind of doing his magic, solving their problems, making all that feel better for them. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, or fortuitously, The Road to Marrakesh, that song wasn't one that worked out so well. Save that for later. That turns into Jealous Guy. And that's exactly the way it should be. And another thing that works out for them is the problem that gets solved is like, where's this going to be? Where's this going to happen? Well, it turns out that they're going to do it up on the roof. And then we get that other magnificent scene where Michael Lindsay Hogg gets dragged up onto the roof. I mean, I don't know, man. That's what, again, Michael Lindsay Hogg, got to give him credit. Did a great job, gave us some magnificent stuff here, but also got to give him credit for being some great comic relief. I'm telling you, even though he didn't mean to be, I don't know, he's the man. He really is the man here for giving us all this really good stuff. Much appreciated, Michael Lindsay Hogg. And it's great to see the four of them now that they've got a lot of problems solved and they're getting more on the same page and the dynamic is there again and they're, having some fun here now rather than being all cramped and cranky over at Twickenham. Now they're kind of loose and loving over at the basement of Apple. And they're having that little party there with a scotch and Coke, and they got the little cookies and biscuits, whatever the heck those things are, right before they leave and go off for the day, the end of episode 2. It's a great way to end episode 2, where it's like, okay, what's going to happen next? We got some problems solved, so it's building up to what's going to happen in episode 3, which we all know what's going to happen in episode 3. But again, it's great to have something to look forward to. And they give us that vibe of like something cool is coming. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really and truly appreciate it. And until next time, peace and love one another. Take care.
Beatles is Beatles are Beatle. In the end, it's like, oh, sod off with the Beatles,